How's it gone?
Great.
Yeah.
Winter Fantasy, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Are we on?
We're on, but
Okay,
this is just our
That's fine.
relax and BS talk. Rudy will edit all this out.
No, I hope not, because this is important.
Yeah.
I have said it before, and I will say it again, because it's still true, and I've been coming to this con for the better part of 20 years on and off. Winter Fantasy is my favorite con, period, full stop.
Yeah.
Fort Wayne hates money,
Yeah.
so it's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
It is small enough to be pretty relaxed, but large enough that you can meet a lot of new people.
Yep.
All the WotC folks show up, all the AL admins show up, and it's relaxed enough where you can say hi, where you can meet them, where you can get a chance to chat.
Right.
And all the new events are here, so they're putting out the best, newest games that are the current bleeding edge of whatever's going on in AL.
Right.
And the hotel is right there. It's got plenty of food nearby. It's just a great con.
Yeah, I love it.
If I could go to only one con a year, this would be the one.
I think the only not to bring up like, the only complaint I would have.
Yeah.
But the only complaint I have is travel, and it's just because I'm in an inconvenient place.
Yeah.
I have to. I think next year we're going to fly into Indianapolis and take a car, because I have a feeling that's better than every stopover. We always end up missing it and having to take a car anyway.
Well, I mean, that's the nice thing about living in Atlanta, the great shiny center of the universe, is I have direct flights to everywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we don't have that. I'll wait till the loudness stops.
What is your favorite part of the con so far?
What is my favorite part of the con? So I always have my annual pilgrimage to the altar of Robert Schwab.
Yes.
Where I lay myself atop it, and he takes his sacrificial dagger of words and plunges it into my chest and sacrifices me to the Demon Lord. So we did that today.
Yeah.
This time I brought my wife along with me, so we could both be laid atop the altar and sacrifice.
Nice.
And that was great fun. Yeah. So he's got a new game called Shadow of the Mad Wizard.
Yeah.
So Apocalyptic is but he's got a new one that he's doing later this year. New Kickstarter he's doing later this year for Shadow of the Mad Wizard, which is his sort of nicer, high fantasy version of Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Right.
And I love Shadow of the Demon Lord, but it could be a little psychologically taxing.
Yes.
Where I think a high fantasy version would be excellent. So I can't wait to back that up.
Yeah. That has been. I love everything Schwab does. He's just Midas.
Man,
everything
he just hammers out content.
Yep.
I think everybody, even all the pros I talk to, are like, man, nobody puts out content like Schwab does. Nope. So and the Shadow of the Demon Lord Kickstarter, I think I got a product every week for a year.
Yeah, just about. Just about.
for not a tremendous amount of money.
And he is so disciplined. He's so disciplined.
Yeah.
He has a number of words a day, and he does that. Yeah. 52 weeks a year, 365 days.
They're good words.
Yep.
It's a real, and his products are just always top notch.
Yep.
Great art and great editing and great design and everything. Kim Mohan, I think, does some of his editing. It's crazy. So I'm Mike Shea. I'm here from Flourish, and I am talking to Paige Leitman. Paige,
hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself? For those who didn't watch the other episode of...
Fair enough. My name is Paige Leitman. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I run some conventions in Atlanta. I write a little content for 5e, and I'm noisy on the internet. That's
and
me.
You not only are noisy on I don't know that I would agree with compared to the noise ratio.
Fair.
However, the other thing you do is you manage some of the noise on the internet.
Yes.
As a moderator for the 5e D&D Facebook group, right?
Yes, we're up to about 270,000 people.
Yeah, so more than 250,000 D&D enthusiats that come through those gates.
Fortunately, not all of them post every day.
Yeah, right. So it's but the topic we talked about before was specifically looking at I would argue, I think you'd agree, a false dichotomy of story versus tactical in the world of 5th edition D&D. And what you brought to it was that it is not a dichotomy, it is two gradient curves, right? And different people are at different spots on the curve. They move at different spots of the curve. We talked about this the last time you and
Sometimes they like one end of the curve for one game. They like the other end of the curve for a different game.
Yeah, I don't know where I would put myself on that curve. And I think time of day, given that I've just played 10 D&D games in 3 days, different times of day, I would probably be at different points of the curve.
Absolutely.
Right. So what I wanted to ask as a follow-up, so I think it's been... Was it
2 years?
2 years? Just about 2 years since the last time we talked about this.
Because we were in season 6 or 7 of Adventures League?
Yeah. And so you posted a post where you talked about this on Facebook, and
Nigh upon a rant.
Sure, but what else? Again, like compared to the rants on the internet, I would say it was relatively. You had some good scientific thought behind your
Thank you.
your topic, right? And so it's like and this is kind of a fast-moving topic, I'd say.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've been kind of paying attention to is like how many people are talking about D&D on Twitter and how that change is growing, and it has doubled about every 2 years for the last 5, which is crazy growth, and it won't keep up. Like you can't keep up growth like that for very long.
And I have heard, I do not have any hard facts. I do not have provable numbers. So digest this fact with the certainty that it is being delivered, which is low.
Right.
But I have heard that the 5th edition PHB has outsold all the other edition PHBs put together.
I think Wizards of the Coast said that.
Did they? Okay,
yes.
good. So
So I've heard at least very similar words to that. And if you look at it, it's still like number 46 on the top books on Amazon, right? And for 5 years. So that's. So there's a lot of people coming in. There are a lot of new people coming in.
And which is unimaginable to me.
Yeah.
Who learned to play D&D at the beginning of the Satanic Panic.
Right. And thinking about the common thing I talk about is like there was a time about 7 or 8 years ago where we thought that Dungeons and Dragons was going to die with the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
And we've never had that conversation anymore. We're like, nope, the torch has been handed off.
Yep.
And now there's a new group. And that's kind of where the curve comes in. So the question 2 years have passed. Do you have 3 new tips for dungeon masters today, based on like what you're seeing on Facebook and the growth you're seeing there, based on this idea of the two paths of and the shifting attention between story focus and tactical focus that you'd offer to DMs today? So,
some of my tips don't necessarily have directly to do with that dichotomy, but have indirectly to do with that dichotomy. The first of which is, please, for the love of all you hold dear, use X cards at your games. If you aren't familiar with the concept of an X card, it is literally a card with an X on it that you can tap or touch to let the DM know that you're not comfortable with the material. And most people are like, it's sex and violence. And I haven't found that that's the case. I have seen it used once when somebody was quitting smoking and somebody was describing a Rakshasa as smoking a pipe, and it was really setting off their Nick fins. I've seen it used again where a woman had just lost her dog, which was some kind of big, fluffy, husky something, and the DM was talking about these wolves were attacking you, kill the wolf, and the wolf is bleeding, and she was sad because her wolf-like dog had just died. So she tapped the X card, and the DM was like, centipedes, they're all actually centipedes, and just changed midstream, and it's very helpful. So one of the things that I think all DMs should do, particularly with convention games, particularly game store games, if you don't know your audience really well, like have been to their houses and know their spouses and their children and their pets, please use X card.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I was talking about that with some friends of mine last night.
So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is if you know your audience, cater to it, and if you don't know your audience, just ask what they like. It is amazing what people will tell you.
What kind of game do you want?
If you ask them. And for a third tip, if you are running a convention module or an Adventures League module or a pre-written module, please, for the love of all you hold dear, read it very carefully, read it twice, give yourself plenty of time, work through the flow of how you go from one encounter to the next encounter. Particularly if you are running Adventures League, those adventures must be prepped very carefully. If you are a new DM, if you're still somewhat uncertain, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you're trying to run them cold or without adequate prep.
Yeah. So I talked to David Christ who runs Baldwin Games and is running the event we're at today, right? And he said that he has I forget, not maybe in the hundreds of thousands of surveys, certainly in the tens of thousands of surveys of dungeon masters. And he said that a very common problem is under prep.
Yeah.
That is probably the most common problem that he sees with the surveys he gets back for DMs that are running organized play games.
And
is
especially
not
at a
being prepared to
convention.
run it, yeah.
If you have people that flew in from wherever they came from,
paying a fair bit of money to play these games.
Yeah, and bought a hotel room and are playing God knows how much for their bad and their tickets. You owe them a good game.
Sure. And I think it's slightly different for home DMs who have a bit of room to sort of go off the rails, and their kind of prep might not need to be the same.
Absolutely.
Although I agree, like even if I'm running a published adventure for my friends at home, I will still read. I still think reading the adventure is a valuable thing to do. If you bother to pay the $50 for a hardback adventure, go ahead and give it a good read.
Yeah.
But also think about the characters and the players and what they want and everything else. I think that's
like
really
I enjoy running pre-published content, but I do a lot of embroidery.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like the pre-published content by the time I'm done with it.
Right. And I think in an organized play setting, I don't know if there's quite as much freedom to be able to take it off the rails, especially with timing and everything else. You got to fit in your 4-hour slot. So what has changed in the 2 years since we've talked about it, and going kind of back to the idea of the curves of story focus versus tactical focus, the people that are coming in, and what the expectations are from players.
Sure.
What do you think and what have you seen has changed in the past couple of years?
So the way I see it, and there's plenty of room for a difference of opinion or interpretation, and if you have a different opinion, please post it. I'd love to see it. But in my opinion, I think my predictions are coming true. I see the AL moving more towards story focus, and they do this in two ways in particular. The first way in particular they've done that is by their choice of published adventures. I will say this with the caveat, I am not familiar with Avernus. My life has been too busy to get very deep into it. But particularly with Dragon Heist being a much more role-playing focused adventure.
And these are Season 8?
Season 8, okay. And the Season 8 adventures, which my husband and I each wrote one.
Right.
The way they've completely redone the Adventures League format, you can get through many adventures without having to do any fighting.
Right.
Ben wrote Poisoned Words, and I wrote Skull Square Murders, and I don't remember which number it was, maybe 8, 12.
Is that the one with the intellect devourers?
That's the one with the intellect devourers.
Yeah.
For which I do not apologize.
Nor should you.
But in that
It doesn't mean I won't give you a narrowed-eyed look.
Please do. But in that one, I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, there were no combats in that module.
Right.
So, spoiler alert, if you haven't played it and you want to, please take a minute to cover your ears.
Yeah, spoilers. Right.
All right, you got your ears covered? Excellent. Yep, we'll be back in 60 seconds if you don't want it. There's plenty of fights in that adventure.
Yeah.
And they're hard fights.
Yeah, right.
Like the Mind Flayer at the end, Raxinolith, he is what is colloquially known in Georgia as a Black & Decker pecker wrecker. And he will get you religion as a fight, but you don't have to fight him. You are absolutely welcome to role-play.
We had, when we played through that adventure, we had the most tactical conversation you can have, where we were crawling in 5-foot squares and using mirrors and tying people to ropes in case they got charmed and all kinds of stuff. And still it ended up as a conversation and a negotiation. It never ended up... We killed our share of intellect devourers. Yeah. But after we saw like 2, we're like, we're not going in there.
Right, unarmed.
Yeah, we're going in there very carefully to have this conversation.
Yep.
So,
but it can be a conversation.
Yeah.
So the Adventures League, from the very top, is, with their format, with their adventure design, is ready for things to be a conversation.
Right.
Now, Ben and I also wrote an adventure for Season 9, which is 9/17 in the hand, and that one is much more tactical, but it also has a lot of puzzle and exploration and role-play elements in it as well. And it is, while there are plenty of super crunchy adventures in both Season 8 and Season 9, there's also a lot of adventures that you can get by with role-play.
Right.
And that is That's very different from seasons 1 through 7.
Yeah, I think the Moonshade adventures that Baldwin Games are putting out are also along that same direction.
So.
I don't know if the format is the same as the season 8 format.
It's close.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
close.
And yeah, we played one last night that was almost all almost all role playing and I guess I would throw it into the large bucket of exploration.
Yeah.
Sort of figure out how to navigate a difficult situation and how we were going to do it. And there was a fair bit of conversation like that.
And I think those
approach.
adventures, particularly Moonshade, are super interesting. Like
a lot of lore.
It's a lot of lore, but it's a lot of like, hey, the city has been taken over. You need to sneak into it.
Exactly.
And if you get up and start fighting people,
it's not going to work.
You're going to die.
Yeah, right.
And so you have to sneak through and do the thing, and it becomes just a very refreshingly different sort of D&D than Keep on the Borderlands. Don't get me wrong, I love Keep on the Borderlands, but it's not your...
Keep on the Borderlands can be a very... conversation-focused adventure of negotiating between goblins and kobolds.
I meant the old one.
Yeah, I'm talking about the old one too. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
So, have you...
there was 2 points.
Sure.
2 points.
Yeah.
So the first way I believe Adventures League has gone more towards role-playing is because of their adventures. But the second thing I think they've done, and I salute them for this, that I think is pulling them more towards the story-rich side of things, is they have taken on Latia Jackson and Ma'at Crook, who are excellent storytellers. Like, strongly approve of them both. Latia I've known for a while, so I knew she was great. Ma'at I had not met till Winter Fantasy. I got to play her adventure-only mod, which is a Moonshade mod.
Right.
And it was fabulous.
Yep.
Just fabulous. She's a terrific
It's like
DM.
the Shadowed City or something like that?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, that's the one we played.
Then good. Then you know.
Yeah.
So no spoilers there because that's very current.
Yeah.
But an excellent storyful role-playing mod that really... So, in my mind, the only interesting thing you can do in an adventure is give the PCs a tough moral choice and then stand back and watch them do it.
Yeah, sure.
And there's some real doozies in Ma'at's adventures.
Right.
She's very clever, and I believe she's going to be just a real asset to the Adventures League program. Latia as well. Latia as well.
How do you see the... So you again, you kind of have your thumb on the pulse of what you see coming across the Facebook group as well. I don't know if there's a big overlap. I mean, you probably spend your fair bit of time in the D&D Adventures League
A little bit, but much more in the 5th edition.
How much time, you got to be the watcher on the wall over at the 5th edition one.
Right.
So...
could be giants and wildlings.
Yeah, there could be all kinds of things pouring across. Rotten bodies being tossed over the side. So... What do you see as the reaction to this to the newer focus, particularly in Adventures League, of the new story focus?
Well,
is there resistance?
The fifth edition group does not know Adventures League.
Right.
The few people in there who do know it don't like it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Because it's like, nobody tells me how to play. Well, we're not.
Yeah.
We're just offering you to play with us if you want to.
Right. Yeah. It ain't for you. It ain't for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they don't have much cognizance of Adventures League, and they don't give anything about the AL admins.
Right.
But Waterdeep made a real interesting splash.
The hardback adventure?
Yeah, the Dragon Heist versus Mad Mage made a real interesting splash in the 5e group, and this is also anecdotal information.
Right.
Waterdeep Dragon Heist got a lot more discussion and what did your characters do and how do I do this and I want to incorporate this other thing in here, and it got a lot of love and vigor and buzz in the 5e group, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage didn't.
Yeah.
And Waterdeep is a role-playing adventure. Dungeon of the Mad Mage has some role-playing elements.
They certainly tried to bring it in there.
Yeah, but it
is still a giant,
it's a dungeon
big-ass dungeon.
Yeah, it is a dungeon crawl.
And by design, right? You're not going to write Dungeon of the Mad Mage and make it a opera.
Right.
Right? It is a dungeon crawl. So,
right,
yeah.
and
it's an experiment in that, I assume. Yeah.
Dragon Heist is an opera.
Yeah,
so,
right.
There's probably 10% of the population that was like, and this is, again, these numbers are based on...
Anecdotally, from your experience.
Feelings.
But unlike almost all of the rest of us who sit and watch, talk to 6 people, you actually are watching thousands of posts, probably a day?
It's a week. It's 200 to 500 posts a day.
Okay, so 200 to 500, that's a pulse, right?
Yeah.
You're watching a pulse of a lot of people talking about
it. So it's 2,000, 3,000 a week. Yeah. there's probably 10% of the population that was just like, meh, I don't like Dragon Heist. Because it is exercising muscles and exercising parts of the D&D experience they didn't like.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You're not required to like all of it.
Yeah.
And the other 90% thought it was really great.
Yeah.
And then on Dungeon of the Mad Mage, there was some discussion, but there just wasn't that much.
Yeah.
So
you didn't even have a lot of people that had the time to argue about whether it was good or bad.
Yeah.
It's also
much.
huge, right? It's a huge adventure. Like, I mean, I don't even know if I like it or not because it came out at almost the same time, and then other stuff came out shortly thereafter. And I was like, I don't think I just finished Tomb of Annihilation, which is a giant dungeon. At the end, I'm not about to take a 26 level or whatever it is. I think it's like 26 levels and start running that. So, but it's got a lot. It feels like it has a lot of material to use and digest and use for other things too.
We saw DMs taking like a couple of levels and using them or thing. Like, I'm going to take all the mind flayers at Stardock and do a thing, or I'm going to take all the whatever that family's name was in the last 3 levels with all the vampires and whatever. I'm going to take them and I'm going to do something with it.
Sure.
Or I'm going to take the Crystal Caverns and do something.
It's a good modular module.
They pulled little bits out.
You can digest the pieces. And
because it takes a long time to play.
Sure.
I mean, just like Tomb of Annihilation.
It
takes forever to play. Now, you can take forever to play Dragon Heist, and God knows in my actual play podcast, we have taken forever to play Dragon Heist. But most people play it in a much shorter amount of time.
Are you seeing any other interesting trends on as you look at the Facebook group? Anything else that's...
So there's one thing that I feel is a very hopeful trend. One of the particular pinch points we have always had in the 5e group is somebody will stand up and say, I like diversity inclusion. And then a bunch of people pile on and say, yes, so do we. And then a bunch of people will pile on and say, I don't like you. I don't like diversity inclusion.
They sound like that? How do they get that across on Facebook?
It's amazing, but they can't.
Really? Like special use of emoji and the like?
Yes,
gotcha.
Absolutely. Special fonts.
Special fonts, right?
And the latter group is starting to slowly filter out, and I don't know if we're just ban them all from the group, or if that presents a genuine shift in the community. And I curate my real life friends pretty close, so there's a standard no asshole policy in my real life because my life's too short. But I like to think that maybe we're making tiny, good steps forward in that direction.
Good. Any other interesting trends that are popping up?
I'm seeing a lot of interesting homebrew where people are using D&D Beyond as a medium to share their creations.
Interesting, like new monsters,
new
magic
items, new spells, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So D&D Beyond is becoming the medium of exchange. The other, obviously, the other popular medium of exchange is a web page called Homebrewery.
Well, I know Homebrewery, the template.
Homebrewery, and then there's one other that I don't recall the name of right now. I'm very tired. Where they'll make it on that and then post it. But we're seeing a lot of posts from D&D Beyond as well. And it just shows how pervasive D&D Beyond is becoming in the community. And of course, 3 times a week we get a post of, I really want to go into D&D Beyond, but it's pretty expensive. I'm not sure it's worth the money. What do y'all think? And you get 90 people saying, I don't know how I DM'd without it, and then 10% of people going, I think
it was interesting. We had so there was sort of an outage of D&D Beyond recently.
I know, and people are just like, I had to run a game that night, and I felt like I was missing half my brain.
I think it was actually helpful. We had it where we're like, oh my god, how do we load it? And my wife was like, I can't load my character sheet. And I was like, what are we going to do? Oh wait, we have the player's handbook right here. And I reach around to the bookshelf and pull the player's handbook out again, and my wife wrote her character on a 3x5 card, and we're ready to play. So I was like, well, it's good to teach us the strength of this game. That even if D&D Beyond something happens, like I was talking at lunch today, I'm like, one of the things I love about D&D is that it can survive a nuclear war. We don't have a whole lot of things that can. People are like, but as long as you have those books, you can play D&D.
Right, because people are like, well, I've already paid for the books. I'm not going to pay for D&D Beyond. I'm like,
That's fine.
The Wizards of the Coast
Yeah.
Special Operations SWAT team
Yeah.
is not coming to your house to take your books.
Yeah. Right.
You get to keep your books. You don't have to use D&D Beyond.
Right.
Nobody says.
Yeah, and you don't need it. Like, there was a difference, not to start a whole 4th edition conversation, but one of the differences in 4th edition is later on, you really couldn't make a character without their online character builder, because you had access to everything.
Yep.
And there were like 14,000 feats or some ridiculous number of powers and feats and everything
14,000 feats, but only 70 of which were worth taking.
Yeah, but right. But they weren't in the core book.
No,
so you had they were spread all over everything.
Right.
So you really, I mean, some people should be like, that's not true, but I remember back then.
No, I do.
And I don't think I could make a pretty decent character without some kind of online tool or get all the math right.
Like I
don't have that problem in 5th. Like 5th, I can make it with a player's handbook, and I've got a character I like.
Yeah, I might could have in 4th edition, but wow, it would have taken a long time.
I actually tried. I did it a couple times where I just used like the essentials kit and would make a character.
If you're more than 5th level though, it's real painful.
It's impossible.
Real painful.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing. One of the nice things I love about 5th, having been a super tactical 3.5 player with the cheesiest of the cheese, because that's how Living Greyhawk was. You could make a character in 3.5 and also in 4 that was really freaking useless. Like, just that player shows up to the table with their whatever, and you're just like, oh my god, we're gonna die. And in 5th edition, you can make a character that's mostly useless. It's a lot harder though.
Yeah, right. If you pick the core stuff, you're like, I'm just going to make a human champion fighter. You're like, a human champion fighter's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. Life cleric. Oh, we like life clerics.
Yeah.
So if you pick their default builds, they are strong default builds.
Absolutely. Now, if you take one level in every class,
right. You can make. Oh, there's that video of the guy who made the 20th level character with a level in every class. So getting back to the topic of the dichotomy of the bell curves, do you have any tips for DMs who are navigating between those curves? They might have started on the tactical side, and they're starting to see the shift, or they have a mixed group of some tactical. What's the right way? I mean, obviously, I think it was your second tip, which was ask them, right? Like, ask them what kind. Are there any other thoughts for kind of DMs who are navigating this shift?
So particularly, I'm finding also with younger players that they want more story-based and less crunch-based. Right. I mean, there's kind of if you get a bunch of 16-year-old murder hobos, you'd really need to give them stuff to
then
beat
you get
up.
Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Yes,
right?
yes. But there's certain peaks and valleys in there, and depending on your demographics, where they really like the story-based stuff. They really dig it. So asking them is part of it. But if you're like a super tactical DM and you want to know how to do more role-playing stuff, go get a pre-printed product. Go get an Adventures League module, one of the new ones, and not one of the dungeon crawls, or go get Dragon Heist, because Dragon Heist is a great way to bring some great role-playing into your life. I'm very fond of Dragon Heist. But that's a good way to do it. Another way is to, even if you don't like podcasts, even if you don't like Critical Role, just listen to one show. I know they're very long. But listen,
I love Critical Role. I wish I had 4 extra hours a week.
Absolutely. I think the world of Critical Role, I do not keep up with it.
Yeah, right.
Adventure Zone is another one that's much shorter, but also equally good in my particular opinion. But go listen to these guys. See what the kids are listening to these days.
Right.
And even if you don't 100% switch to that style, 1% switch to that style. Take small steps. Do one thing. And start looking at non-tactical ways to solve problems. Because like sometimes you're in a place where no amount of violence is going to help you. If you're like one excellent example is when you're in the evil city, and this is what Ma'at did. You're in the evil city, and if you start fighting, the stormtroopers are going to come get you. So you have to find other ways to deal with it, which leaves you for exploration and role playing, and that becomes a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And just try. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, turn into the Adventure Zone or Critical Role overnight. Just take one tiny step and see how your players react. Do they love it? Do they hate it? I don't know. But that's kind of how you become a better dungeon master anyways. Try little changes and see what works. Not all of them will work. But you got to keep inventing or you get in a rut. And if you're getting in a rut, go play in somebody else's game.
Yeah, that's one of the things I do when I come here. Is like it's my opportunity to play a whole ton of games when I never play otherwise. So.
Yeah, like go to a con, play a bunch of different games with a bunch of different people you don't know, and you'll be exposed to different play styles.
Good and bad.
That's good. Right. It's either, wow, I really learned something, which is that I want to do this, or wow, I really learned something. I never want to be that person.
Yeah, I think it was Truman Capote, the writer, who said that when he would get into situations where he was interviewing really boring people, he'd be like, what is it that makes this person so tremendously boring? Like, what in their life? And he would study that, right? He would dive, like, what is it about me? Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling about this person who's had this, like, complicated life? Like, what? And he would try to, like, dig in that. It's the same way, like, when I'm in a bad game, I get my best DM tips.
Yeah.
when I'm sitting through a bad game, it's like, what a wonderful opportunity to experience these things firsthand and see the problems. So.
But for a hobby that has such a history and stereotype of insular people, going to a convention, even just a small local convention, even just playing more games with people you don't know at other game stores, just getting out and meeting new players will really improve you as a DM and as a player.
Yeah, and I'd also highly recommend. So I've gone to a lot of small conventions, a lot of big conventions, and I think I recommend the small ones way more.
I do too.
That it's way easier to, like you said, come in here.
Yeah.
Way cheaper, way easier, way more relaxed.
Yep.
You know, I can find a place to sit.
Yep.
I can go get a burger easily.
You don't have to stand in line really for anything.
Right. And that is a tremendous benefit. So those like 200 to 500 person conventions, or even 100 to 400. I don't know how big this one's. I think it has a 500 cap, right? That they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So. And so it's been a great pleasure to talk to you again. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me.
Always a pleasure.
And we will come back in a couple of years and
see where we are
how the
there.
barometer has moved. So thank you very much.
By that point in time, I expect to have a D&D implant chip.
We've been talking
that
about
I can put in my head
since like '86.
Yeah, this is true. We had that.
I'm happy sitting at the table playing with my books.
We were talking about that in Cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We were writing about it in Cyberpunk.
Oh, what? Yeah, another thing.
Yeah, please.
In order to break your habits and break your ruts, to try different things, play a different game.
Yeah.
Go play Esper Genesis. Go play
2 different games today.
Shadow of the Demon Lord. Go play the new Shadowrun game.
Yeah.
Do something, but it'll help break you.
Yeah, Stephen Randy McFarlane's Delve.
Yeah,
I had never. Yeah, I was like, is that Stephen Randy McFarlane?
Yeah.
I'm like, what's he up to these days? And I'm like, oh, Delve, what's that? And then today I'm like, I'll go play that. And I'm like, wow, this is really fun. So really, I agree. Yeah, I learned a lot of the one that I keep promoting to lots of people is Dungeon World.
Oh,
Dungeon World has such a different take.
Because that's the built on the Powered by the Apocalypse.
Powered by the Apocalypse,
Great game.
Yeah. And it's, I think it was the first book that like gave me written permission to recognize that I should be fans of the players and not their adversary.
Yeah.
And after playing 4th edition, where I was very much their adversary for most of the time, suddenly realizing like, oh, I should design encounters that make them look cool, not punish them for the build that they focused on. And that, it sounds...
That's a huge piece. That's a big gestalt change that will empower any DM who internalizes
I think be fans of the players are my favorite 5-word single piece of advice.
I believe it.
Right, and it makes a huge difference. So, anyway, a great pleasure. I know you've got places to be. Always fun. And we will talk again. I'll see you around the con.
You know it.
Thank you very much.